Okay. So a little more work in line. We know what slope-intercept form looks like, right? Y equals what? Mx plus b. That's one particular form called slope-intercept because in that particular form, you can see specifically the slope and the y-intercept, right? So what do they want us to do here? They got 4 lines graphed over here on the right. You see how they're numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4, yeah? Okay? And they want you to write the number of the line beside the correct equation. Now, there's not a lot of detail about those lines, right? It's hard to say what points are what. But what can you tell by looking at the equations about the line it'll make?
It'll make like going like this one.
Slope, right? A positive or negative slope. And what else can you tell?
Oh, with 3 and 4, the lines don't.
Well, from the equation, yeah.
1 and 2 back there.
Right, but from the equations, you can tell the slope, whether the line's going to go up, positive slope, down, negative slope, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And what else can you tell?
The y.
Roughly, right? You can't count it over there, but like compared to the other ones, could you tell which one's which, right? Okay, so what do you guys think?
I think
The negative 2x plus 3 could be which of those lines?
I think it's
1.
2. I think 2 is a lot.
No, I think number 1 is for negative 2 over 3 plus 3.
No, I think 3 is.
Well, let's write this down. It has a negative slope, right? Negative slope. And what can you say about its y-intercept?
I think it's 2.
Is the y-intercept, is the y-intercept positive or negative? So positive y-intercept. Okay. So that probably is enough, given the lines are there. Which line over there has a negative slope with a positive y-intercept? Are there any more than one of them that does?
Yeah. I know
No, I think it's 3.
Yeah, doesn't it have to be 3, right? Has a negative slope, and the y-intercept is positive. All right, so that's a 3. What's the slope of this line? Y equals x plus 5. What's the slope? Yeah, 1 over 1, right? Okay, so this has a positive slope, yeah? And a positive y-intercept.
It's 1.
Does 2 have a positive y-intercept, Hannah? No, so it can't be 2. So it's got to be choice 1, right? Y equals negative 2x. Slope is what? Right. Negative slope. And what about the y-intercept? Negative y-intercept.
4.
That should be 9.
And this is.
So yeah, that would be line 4. And this one has a positive slope. Negative y-intercept. And line 2. Yeah. All right, get the idea? Not a lot of information on the graphs, but enough to, tell which equation would have made it, okay, compared to the other ones. All right.
This one's easy.
All right, so now we're going to graph them, and this is, you guys know how to do this already, right? So we have this y equals 3/2 x minus 3, yeah? So what is the slope of this line? 3 over 2. So what does that tell us to do? It tells us to go which way? Up 3, and don't tell me over.
Left. Right.
Right 2. Yeah, over is not sufficient enough, okay? And what is the y-intercept of this? Negative 3. So go over here on the y-axis to negative 3. 1, 2, 3. And which way do we proceed from there?
Up 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
1, 2, 3, and right 2. And then, you can draw your line. Right? Kind of accurate here, yes. Oh, just want that kind of line. What part? Were you confused, Anna?
What'd you say?
Everything. All right. What are we doing exercise 3? So it's still based on the same equation up here. Write down 2 points that this line passes through. And then let's calculate the average rate of change. So let's find 2 points.
-2, 6. -2, -6.
Yeah. Or maybe we could just pick the 2 that we plotted. We could pick that, right?
I thought it was
What's the coordinates of this point where the y-intercept was?
-3.
You mean 0, comma, -3? And then we went up 3 to the right 2. What's the coordinates of that point? 2, comma, 0, yeah? You could have used any other 2 points, but I just wanted to pick the 2 that ended up being plotted, right? So now let's do our rate of change. Let's do the delta y over delta x, right? Do we have 2 y values? Okay, so we're going to delta y is difference in y's, right? So y2 minus y1, right? The second one minus the first one. You've seen this before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Over what?
X2.
Second x minus the first x, right? Okay. So let's do that. That's our slope. And by the way, yeah, this is our slope, which is our rate of change. So 0 minus
-3.
parentheses -3, right? Don't make a mistake of just writing 0 minus 3 there. Over what?
2 -0.
0, which equals what?
3 over 2.
3/2.
3 halves. Hey, does that look familiar?
Yeah.
This is rate of change. Look at that. There it is. Right? See that little connection there? So at any 2 points on that line, you'll get the same rate of change here. All right? All right, let's go to the next page real quick.
Oh, property.
Ah, yes, we need to remind ourselves of some properties here. Just hang tight.
Ah.
Just wait. Okay, now we have a linear equation. You're going to want to see this. 2y minus 6x equals 12. Is that in slope-intercept form? Let me ask you this. Can you look at this linear equation and tell me what the slope is?
Yeah.
What's the slope of it?
-6.
False.
12.
Okay, let me ask you this. You're all wrong. What's the y-intercept? Nope.
12.
Is it in y equals mx plus b
12
form?
X. Oh, it's exactly.
Is it in y equals mx plus b form?
No.
Then we cannot look at it and get the slope in the y-intercept like that, right? It is not in y equals mx plus b form. This is important. You cannot look at that equation and tell me what the slope and the y-intercept are of it, right? Everyone can see it's not in just y all by itself equals mx and then b, right?
Yeah. So we have to do it.
So what do we have to do? This form right here, looks like we solved it for what? For y, yeah? So how are we going to solve it for y? What would you do first to get the y all by itself on the left?
By 2.
Not first, no.
Add 6.
Add what?
Combine like
Add what?
6x.
6x to both sides, and then you would do what? Then divide by 2, right? So here's what they do. They do that over here. So 2y minus 6, they do it their way, right? They're adding 6x to both sides, right? But I would rather have, let's put the 6x in front, right? So they're adding 6x to both sides. What property allows that? Mhm.
Addition.
Yeah, the addition, yeah, remember when it's on both sides, it's a POE? Okay? And then they kind of rewrote this, didn't they? We took the 12 plus 6x and made it 6x plus 12. Because now it's looking closer to this, right? And what property did they use to do that? Where you can just move things from place to place. The commutative property of, yeah, you guys remember that. Property addition. Okay, now what are they doing to both sides to get the y by itself?
Dividing.
By 2. What property? Multiplication. What? You did it to both sides, right? Property of equality? Yeah. But wait, they divided.
It's the opposite. You can only do
It's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, right? And what happened here? Why didn't they do it? I don't know. Like what?
They did it again?
Oh, they're doing, I see. I would have done it differently, right? But aren't they using the distributive property by multiplying by 1/2? I would have done just each term, but that's fine.
Distributive, oh,
So now look,
distributive, yeah.
look at this equation. Is it now in the correct form to determine the slope and the y-intercept?
Yes.
Yeah.
You understand that you cannot determine it when it looks like this or anything else, right? Okay. So now, what is the slope of this line?
3.
3. All right, I'll do 3 over 1, right? So it feels like rise over run. And what is the b, the y-intercept?
It equals 6.
6. That's where it crosses the y-axis. And now you can graph it easily, okay? So let's have you guys go down here. You guys understand what we're doing?
We just try A and then you go over the rest.
How about I go over A with you and you guys do the rest? Because I already had all my practice with these back in first grade. Okay?
First grade,
Yeah. So, we need to put this in y equals mx plus b form, which means we need to solve it for what? Y. So, let's get rid of the 3, get the 3x over there. So we'll add 3x to both sides, which gives us 3y equals, can we combine these? Are they like terms?
No.
No.
3y equals 3x plus 15.
I'm going to start with the 3x, use the commutative property right out of the gate. And now what do we do? Divide, and I'm going to do a little bit differently, every single term by what? 3. And what are we left with?
Y equals x plus 5.
X plus 5. Okay? What's the slope?
X.
Nope.
1.
1. And what is the y-intercept? 5. Okay, you get the idea? You guys go through and do the rest of these real quick, okay? Leave it as a fraction, will you?
I got 2.5. -2.
Leave it as an improper fraction. Is that okay? How'd you get your decimal? Why don't you just leave it as 5/2? Thanks. Because then you get rise over run, don't you? Right? Okay. So subtract 5x from both sides first, right? So that gives us 2y equals what? Negative 5x minus 8, right? Just get them in the proper order for mx plus b. And then finally what? Divide everything by 2. So you get y equals what? Negative 5/2 x minus 4. What's the slope? Negative 5 over 2. And what's the y-intercept? Negative 4. Yep. That's it. Do the last two real quick. How many got y equals 1/3 x minus 2?
I got y equals x.
That's well, we want to solve for the y. So what should we do first here? Subtract x from both sides, right? What does that leave us, by the way? The negative stays with the 3y, right? So it's negative 3y equals what?
Negative x minus
Plus 6, right? And now what do we do?
divide by negative 3.
Leaving us with what? Y equals, no, it's going to be positive what? Minus 2. Okay, what's the slope? 1/3. What's the y-intercept?
Negative 2.
-2. And now you can graph it real easily, right? Give you another moment on the last ones. Now, what's the answer to this D?
Y equals
negative 3/2.
Nope.
y equals 6/4 x, also known as 3/2.
3/2 x
What's a negative 5?
I wrote mine backwards.
plus, you should have y equals 3/2 x plus 5.
Yeah, I did that. I put a negative one.
So we're solving for y. So we got to ditch the 6x by doing what? So subtract 6x from both sides, right? What's that leave us with over here?
Negative
They go away.
4y.
Yeah, we can't combine them. They're not like terms.
Okay, I had it at 2, not 20.
Yeah, okay. And now what do we do to get the y by itself? So we get y equals, this is going to be positive, and what's 6/4 in lowest terms?
3/2.
So 3/2 x, what? Plus 5. What's the slope?
3/2.
3/2.
3/2, and what's the y-intercept?
5.
Now you can graph it because it's in y equals mx plus b form, yeah? All right, let's real quick go back to that Regents question we just skipped.
I'll put forward.
Right here.
I think there's a ghost here.
That's
There
fine.
probably is. It's Halloween.
Okay, read this over,
Trick or treat.
and you all, Serenity, should be able to graph this one.
I didn't go.
So you're going to try and identify the slope and the y-intercept, right? Well, let's just do that right now, guys. What's the slope of this line?
No, you have to solve.
What's the y-intercept of this line?
Negative 2.
It
No,
is
you have to
not.
solve. You have to
Is it in y equals mx plus b form? No. So you guys all right now make that happen and then graph it, okay? You need to solve this.
Okay, I did do this.
I got it.
Solve that and get it into y equals mx plus b form. Find your y-intercept, count your slope to the next point, and connect it with a straight edge. Go ahead. This is what we were just doing in the notes.
He deleted it, girl.
Where did the what go?
The whole, until 4/4. It's just
I copied it into this set of notes.
I got the one. And the two.
Things that bother me. So hopefully we got this, right? Did that. You got y equals negative 3/2 x minus 1, right? What's the slope, guys? Negative 3/2.
Oh my God.
The y-intercept is negative 1.
Thinking of the y-intercept.
So now go to the y-axis at negative 1. Which way do we go from there?
This one.
Yeah, tell me, please.
3.
Down 3, 1, 2, 3, and what?
Right.
Right 2. Get your straight edge out and connect them up.
I forgot I had a little. That was just a while.
Guess about like that, I don't know. Yeah, everybody's line should look like this, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And let's look at the follow-up question real quick.
It's negative 4.
Yeah.
The linear equation contains a point 2 comma k. Well, how are we going to figure out? The 2 is what?
X.
An x. So go to x of 2
And then go down.
and down to there. What are the coordinates of that point? 2 comma,
-4.
so that's it, 2, -4. So you want to state that k equals -4, because they asked to state, right? Get the idea? You cannot get the slope or the y-intercept unless your equation is in y equals mx plus b form. Doesn't say you can't graph it in a different form, but right now, the only way to get slope and y-intercept is having y equals mx plus
Wait,
b
so our
form.
homework 4.3 and 4.4?
Correct.